NAB's boss calls the housing crisis Australia's biggest challenge and says there's only one solution.
Supply, supply, supply. Right now, we're not getting there.
And we look at what it'll take to get there.
High-rise apartment buildings around key transport hubs and commercial centres.
Every day we're on the search for more trades.
Welcome to The Business. I'm Alicia Barry. The boss of the country's third biggest bank says housing is Australia's greatest societal and policy challenge. NAB CEO Andrew Irvine made the comments as he delivered the company's full-year result. The numbers underwhelmed shareholders, with the stock down by over 3% at the end of the day. NAB recorded a slight fall in full-year profit to $6.8 billion. Cash earnings were steady at $7.1 billion as costs rose. And NAB will pay a final dividend of 85 cents a share. I spoke to Andrew Irvine after the announcement. Andrew Irvine, welcome to The Business.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
The RBA is unlikely to cut interest rates until the middle of next year. Do you think your customers can hold on until then?
Yeah, on the housing side, we've actually seen improvement in household stress over the course of the year. It peaked in the first quarter and has been reducing from there on in. So I think that's positive. Every time in the three instances that we have seen an RBA reduction in interest rates, we've given our customers the option of whether they want to keep their payments at the same level or reduce them to reflect the reduced rate. And 80% of our customers have chosen to keep their payments at the same level so that they're essentially paying off their home loan faster. And 20% who need the help have chosen to reduce their payments. So I think that's reflective of where we are at in the country.
How do you see Australia's economy performing as we head into 2026, and when do you think the RBA will need to cut rates?
I guess it depends on how things go. We expect the country to show growth of 2% of GDP in 2025, accelerating to 2.3% next year, which is about the level of growth that the economy can handle without generating inflation. We'd all love to see the country be able to grow at something higher, say 3% a year, but to do that, we need productivity. And we need, more dwellings built that will generate economic activity. We need cheaper and reliable energy. Energy costs are a real problem. And then we need to leverage other productivity tools like AI. And if we do those things and do those things well, hopefully the country can grow a little bit of a faster clip.
The RBA noted in its statement on monetary policy that bank funding conditions are pretty favourable and there's strong competition between lenders. What is the competition environment like?
It's strong and fierce. Home for consumers, lending competition's been fierce for a number of years now, and we're seeing a competition increasing in our core business banking segment as well. Pleasingly, though, our bank grew market share in the year in both deposits and in lending. And we did that while managing margins effectively. So I'm really pleased with how we're threading the needle there for our shareholders as well as for our customers.
We are seeing reports that there could be some stress in the US banking system and tightening credit conditions. Are you seeing that reflected in the wholesale funding that you access?
We are not, thankfully. I think the matter that you highlight is a unique situation to the US economy right now. Thankfully, we haven't seen those translate to us here in Australia. Funding markets are still constructive and we haven't seen an increase in our long-term funding costs.
You said today that housing is Australia's biggest societal and policy challenge. How are we going to solve it?
Supply, supply, supply. We've been consistent on that. There has been improvements on some of the demand settings, but improving demand settings doesn't get more Australians into homes. What does get more Australians into homes is having more homes to move into. So we simply have to build more dwellings. We are seeing some green shoots there. I'd call out South Australia as probably managing that best. They've got 20% increase year over year in housing starts. And we need all states starting to show those types of numbers.
What do you make of the government's first home ownership scheme? Is that going to push up prices in the lower end of the market?
If we have no more supply, yes, which is why supply is so important. I think it's a good policy setting, but if that's the only policy setting that changes, prices will go up and we won't get more young Australian families into homes. The key there is more supply.
And of course, in that segment of the market, we often see investors enter. Are you seeing investor competition between first home buyers and investors?
Yeah, there is competition. We encourage both. You want more investors buying homes because that provides options for renters, and so, we want homes for both renters as well as first-time home buyers, and so we're keen to see expansion in both of those areas.
Your climate report is out today. The business is working to net zero by 2050. How important is it that the country is on the same page when it comes to our climate goals, given the politicking we're seeing in Canberra?
Yeah, look, Australia needs more energy. We need more renewable energy, and we also need more gas. Gas is very important to provide the baseload power that the country needs, or firming is the language that allows us to have renewables, because renewables go on and off, whether the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. So we need more energy. And that's important for both meeting our climate aspirations and decarbonising, but also to ensure that Australians have access to cheap, affordable and reliable energy.
And do you think business is on board for net zero 50?
What business want is stability. These things are long-term cycles that require long-term investments, and I think business doesn't appreciate whipsawing of settings, and so let's pick a setting and go for it.
Andrew Irvin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
One prominent think tank, the Grattan Institute, says allowing 3-storey dwellings on all residential land could slash house prices by $100,000 per home. But the construction industry says the biggest problem it's facing is a shortage of labour. Eliza Getzi reports.
On the outskirts of Australia's largest and most expensive city, builders are busy.
The interest rates have dropped. There's a bigger demand. More clients are starting to buy.
But builders and experts agree building out isn't enough to get Australia to the government's target of 1.2 million homes in the next 4 years. One solution from the Grattan Institute, building up.
The reality is Australian cities are some of the least dense of their size in the world. We haven't allowed enough housing in those areas where Australians most want to live, in those inner and middle ring suburbs of our capital cities.
The new report proposes a shake-up of planning across the nation by loosening regulations in all cities and suburbs. The Grattan Institute says it could add 67,000 new homes a year and save $100,000 a house by filling in the missing middle.
Townhouses and low-rise apartment buildings can help fill that gap, as can high-rise apartment buildings around key transport hubs and commercial centres.
The philosophy behind it, much like the housing ministers.
The more housing we build, the more affordable housing becomes for Australians.
She brought some encouraging news for the future of the housing supply this week.
Building approvals around Australia are up 15.3% on last year, Speaker. These are meaningful numbers, and this number has been growing fairly consistently now for 20 months. We have got a long way to go on housing, but we're seeing some really important progress.
But hitting the target might not be that simple. 176,000 homes were built in the first year of the National Housing Accord. But to reach the target by 2029, that number needs to hit more than 250,000 new homes each year for the remaining 4 years. That's hard to do when you don't have enough builders to do the job.
Skilled labour is still the number one issue that the building industry, not only in New South Wales but across Australia, needs to tackle.
Every day we're on the search for more trades to keep up with the demand of the framing.
It's a perennial problem that's adding to build times and costs.
More investment into the workforce, particularly into TAFE and training, but also for employers to take apprentices on.
There are now more people pulling out of construction apprenticeships than new starters.
We've probably been through over 30 apprentices since I've been working for the company that I work for, and I'm the only qualified employee.
But a previously untapped source of workers is growing: women.
in a sector where you essentially are only attracting 50% of the population, then inevitably you're going to have a skills shortage.
More women are joining the construction industry, not just on site, but in roles like management and design. Paige Bainan is studying construction management and learning the ropes from her dad. He says land prices are another barrier to growing the housing supply.
Still, there's a cost barrier. The cost of the land, the cost of construction, a lot of them don't add up.
And with prices rising, time is critical.
The cost of holding that land, getting it ready for market, getting the infrastructure there, the duration, the time frame that it takes, that costs developers, that cost is inevitably going to be passed on to the consumer.
Red tape has long been a complaint from the industry, but governments appear to be starting to listen.
New South Wales and Victoria have unlocked the kind of high-density apartment buildings that we hope to see around transit hubs and other major commercial centres.
We are seeing some green shoots. Markets such as Sydney and Melbourne, which have been lagging behind.
Green shoots in the growing problem of Housing Australia.
James Hardie saw its share price plummet by nearly 13% to be the worst performer of the day. The building materials giant appears to be struggling to bounce back from last week's unprecedented investor revolt over its $14 billion acquisition of US company ASIC. It says today's drop is due to its removal from a key market index, MSCI Australia. A bounce back in the miners led the broader share market a little higher, snapping a two-day losing streak. By the close of trade, the ASX 200 and the All Ords were up by 1/3%.